Welcome to the Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene on Strong Island Entertainment. Gee, I hope I didn't make a mistake with these two. They promised me they'd bring in some really good guests. Well, anyway, here's Frank and Irene.
Hello, welcome to Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene. Mr. Frank Conniff, I love you, I miss you. P.S. That person on top playing the music, I always like to give her a plug, Frank, because I love her, is Gabby Glazer from Luscious Jackson. Thank you so much for letting us use your tunes. Frank, what is going on? I miss you.
I miss you too. Well, now you were in Martha's Vineyard, right?
Oh my God, it was.
You were on like a fancy vacation.
I did have a fancy vacation, thanks to a dear friend, and it wasn't exactly the vineyard. It was Dennis, the Cape. The area is actually Dennis, but it's right. It's exactly like the vineyard. And it was amazing. It's just like the little things on vacation, like just getting ice cream that's homemade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like the beaches are so much more beautiful. It's crazy. The beaches are like, I don't remember seeing a beach like this the entire time I've been in New York, not even upstate at the Hamptons. Now I know that you're from the Hamptons or you were raised there. How is that? How are the beaches there? Are they like?
Oh, they're nice. I mean, it's been forever since I've been there. I mean, most of the heroin needles weren't even on the beach back then.
Because they're here on Staten Island, Frank. Yes. There's a lot of heroin needles here.
So, but they're beautiful, but I'm not well traveled enough to compare to other beaches.
Right. You know what?
When I lived in LA, I would go to Santa Monica and Venice, and that was always nice and stuff.
Right.
I'm not the
beach connoisseur.
The connoisseur of beautiful getaway places. I'm too busy getting away inside my own head most of the time. Deal with. But I've always wanted to. When I was a kid, I went to camp in Maine. So I spent a little bit of time in New England, like a long time ago, and I've done some gigs up there recently. But I know that that's such a beautiful area, and I would love to spend more time, like in Vermont and places like that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Vermont. I was at a comedy club in Vermont. Vermont is incredibly breathtaking and beautiful. I've been to Maine, and I'm jealous that you were recently in Maine because I've been wanting to get back. I haven't been to Maine, and since I was a kid. I went to Colby to visit some friends in college, which is in Maine. But I haven't been back, and I absolutely love it. We talked about this. Stephen King lives there. I would be stalking him obsessively. But Maine is really beautiful. But the beaches, listen, on the West Coast, the beaches are incredibly beautiful. The beaches here, though, in New Jersey, on Staten Island, very glamorous beach. Like you said, hypodermic needles and a lot of glass and a lot of fucking assholes loitering. And I'm not talking about anybody that's horizontal. We're talking about vertically loitering, walking around and polluting the air. But these beaches on the one that I went to on the Cape in Dennis, I was actually doing some research, and it's like one of the most beautiful beaches. And I'm like, that's like a really tall, statement. Like one of the most beautiful beaches, like one of the most notoriously beautiful beaches. I forget the name of it, but I couldn't believe how gorgeous this beach was. It was just like one of these beaches where there was sand for miles. It was like soft, beautiful sand. And then there was like wet sand for miles, and then beautiful waves that are not going to, because I'm very fearful of the water. I'm afraid I can't really swim. So it's not like that crazy rough waves that just sort of like can, cause undertow. Yeah. Anyway, it was lovely.
I mean, the closest I've been to beach sand lately was being around a bank ashtray. I'm not that, but then I was wondering about you because did you have to travel like when the tropical storm happened? I was
So no, it was before that. It was before, and even when I went to the Cape, Frank, I did the whole thing. We every place that we went to eat or hang out, always outdoors because, actually COVID is spiking everywhere on the Cape. So I was very safe. We were always outdoors and not taking any chances whatsoever. But I don't know, Frank. We still have to do our trip upstate that I owe you so big.
Well, you've been promising me this trip upstate.
I'm a twat, Frank.
Now.
I'm such a twat. What kind of a mother would I have made? Promising you.
Sounds like you're just exactly like my mother, who never took me on a trip either.
So it's what you're used to. Thank God.
It's what I'm used to.
So it's what you're used to. Okay, so Frank, I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest on the show. This guy, not only is he funny, Frank, and not only is he one of the sweetest people that I know, Mr. Conniff, but he's also a very old friend of mine. I used to work with him, not for him. Fuck that. Oh my God. I used to work with him at a very fancy restaurant where you actually had to submit a headshot to even start working there. Mr. Jose Vega, everybody. Jose Vega. Jose, I love you.
What's up, love? Love you too, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I can't believe, look at us after all these years reunited after Bar 6, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's been really, really wild. And we're both doing the same thing. It's just even astonishing. I knew you had it in you, though. I knew you always had it in you.
I mean, Jose, okay, Frank, I'm going to tell Frank, we worked at a place called Bar 6, which was kind of like a pretentious, douchey place in many ways, but I met the loveliest people, but I had to submit a fucking headshot to work.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, that was kind of crazy. Let's be honest, right?
Those were those early 90s, man. Restaurant jobs, like bar and all that shit. They would ask you for headshots. It was ridiculous. They would ask
you for headshots, and everybody was just grabbing each other's ass. There was no such thing as a sexual assault.
No.
I was dressed like a whore.
It was like that at the Arby's I worked at.
I used to dress. You remember those outfits? I used to dress like I would just not wear a bra and you could just see my nipple. And thank God I can do that because look what's happening in Afghanistan. I don't want to fucking get into that just yet. But anyway, it was just like one of those places where you had freedom of expression and you weren't being judged, but at the same time it was kind of douchey and you had to submit a headshot. But I met you and it was all well worth it. Now, you at the time, and I actually made an entire film about this. I don't know how comfortable you feel about talking about this, but at the time, everybody that we were working with, Frank, was a heroin addict. Literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really? No, I'm very comfortable with it. Yeah, I was a heroin addict for 2.5 years, 2 overdoses. Not proud of it, but I survived it. And you did make a film about it. It was a really ugly scene. You know what I mean? We were making a lot of money so people could do a lot of drugs and maintain a job. It was unbelievable when I look back on it now.
It really was. And Frank, Frank also used to bartend at the bitter end as a bartender.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, years ago. Way before even then, though. I worked there in the early 80s, late 70s.
Oh, shit. Wow.
I imagine there were a lot of drugs there, too, right, Frank?
I did a shit ton of drugs. I got drunk every night. I did whatever coke was available to do.
Sure.
I would go to after hours clubs.
Oh yeah.
Remember those? I'm sure there's still.
Yeah, sure.
It's
the culture of the hospitality business.
Wow,
man.
Frank, I cannot picture Frank fucking Conniff at an after hours club. Remember those clubs? What was it called? Save the Robots.
Save the Robots. Yeah, they open till noon. Open till noon.
Well, that's also what I remember too. Is because the bars close in New York at 4 a.m. And so you could go there and drink way past that. Of course, the cocaine would help you stay up to keep drinking. But everyone who ever partied this way knows exactly what I'm talking about. Was the horror, the self-loathing that happened when you walk out of the bar and into the sunshine.
Oh yeah.
That sunshine was like a gigantic, like
the walk of shame.
Yeah, it was like Satan's eyes.
It was God like smiting you and judging you. And plus the drugs and stuff were wearing off and you were starting to realize, fuck, I spent my whole paycheck.
Yeah.
What am I doing? But everyone who who hung out in those places, I think had exactly those same kind of feeling.
I've spent
Frank,
I spent 2 decades like that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Frank just nailed it though, Jose.
Yeah.
How many times after walking out of Save the Robot, and you would see like all your favorite actors, I can't remember the names of countless, right? You'd walk out and you'd feel that exact feeling. It's fucking daylight. I just spent the entire night into the day, daylight, doing drugs and whatever. Yeah. Now, it was an interesting time because, you know, when we worked at Bar 6, Frank, it was like people were just doing heroin left and right, from managerial positions to all the workers. It was like it was
at work too.
Acceptable, right?
Yeah,
it was acceptable. You had you could do
it was
drugs
acceptable.
in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. You took turns. You waited on somebody's table while somebody went and shot up. I'll never forget that. That sounds crazy and preposterous, but I lived it. And you were there. You witnessed it. You saw it. I literally there was Harry. I mean, there was, you know, I don't want to mention any first last name.
We'll mention some names. There was Renee French, who Frank never met. She was in Jim Jarmusch's Coffee and Cigarettes, though. Yeah. She might have been the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely,
So, COVID took her life this past year. She turned into a nurse. But
what was her name?
Renee French.
Renee French, wow.
Renee French, absolutely.
Yeah.
To me, she's like the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I agree.
She was deeply into heroin. And Frank, this is where I met not only Jennifer Esposito, but I also met Rachel Kern, the artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She used to
be was our manager
there too.
And Julianne Nicholson, the actress, worked with us as well. She was a waitress.
Oh, wow. She was
Julianne Nicholson. She was a good friend of mine.
Mayor of Easttown, right? She's phenomenal.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, she was really cool. Yeah, she was really cool. She worked there too.
Yep, a lot of
that's amazing.
Really amazing up and coming people, but it was just saturated.
What I heard about that place was everyone is on heroin, but the chicken wings are good.
The couscous is
well, they don't
good.
have chicken wings, but the tagine of chicken was great.
The tagine of chicken. None. It's not like I ever ate there.
He never ate there. All he did was fucking sweat, and he was like 60 pounds. Yeah. I swear to God. But you know what, Jose? I'm so happy to see that you're healthy now. And
man, me too.
I was so worried about you, and you always had like the sweetest, most beautiful heart, and you were always absolutely fucking hilarious. So it's no surprise at all. He kept us all laughing in the kitchen that you turned into a comic, and we didn't know each other was a comic until not that long ago, actually.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time. You know, I am going to be posting a short film. I'm going to be putting it to Instagram. It is a film that I actually shot, directed, wrote on Super 16. It is a horror film about heroin. So when I do that, I'll have to reach out to you so that you can check it out.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so what compelled you to start doing comedy? Like, what was your impetus? Like, is this something
I was always drawn to it, man. You know, I was always a fan of it, you know, and I was always the class clown. It was just like, it would just happen. You know, I wanted to be an actor, and then I realized I hated actors. You know, I did all the Herbert Berghoff classes and all that shit. I actually was an intar, you know, which was pretty cool. That was in the early 90s, and that was with Sam Rockwell when he was first starting out too, and that was pretty neat. But then there were a lot of guys in there. There was a lot of Hispanic actors that are pretty big name. Like Guillermo Toro, a lot of these dudes started there. But you know, I just wasn't that great. I don't think I'm that good of an actor. You know what I mean? I love comedy so much more. You know, it's more my thing. I've done it, you know, and I've done sketches and I've done, you know, plays and all that stuff. But it's just stand up is where it's at for me. You know, I just that's my thing.
So you were really drawn to it. I disagree that you wouldn't be a great actor, though. Frank, is comedy? I don't think I've ever asked Frank this question, and I've known him for a long time, and I love him. And Frank, what did you dream of becoming a stand-up? Like, what was your?
Yes, I absolutely did. You know, I actually know, and you probably do know, a few comics who were like, oh, I never thought about doing comedy. And then one day there was an open mic and I got up and it just kind of happened. And like my experience is totally different from that. I grew up obsessed with comedy and comedians on TV. You know, I mean, I was a George Carlin fan when I was like 10 years old. Before he became the George Carlin that we all know and love, when he was just a regular comedian who appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. Like I loved him even back then, and I was, and I was really into Jonathan Winters and Richard Pryor and Woody Allen, and I loved comedy movies, like Marx Brothers movies. So it's something that like from an early age, I was something I wanted to do. And then when I was finally old enough to do it, I was so fucked up on drugs, to continue the theme of this show. I was so messed up on drugs.
I like the callback.
It took me forever to get my shit together. I didn't start till I was like 24, and then I was still on drugs. So I fucked that up for a long time. It really wasn't until I moved to Minneapolis and I was 29 years old and I'd been in rehab that I finally seriously, consistently did comedy, and then became a working comedian because it was the 80s comedy boom. So I became a working comedian pretty soon. I mean, a working comedian making a very meager living, but still making a living. So that's how it happened to me. And, I grew up in New York, and I grew up, my father was friends with Jackie Gleason. He was friends with Phil Silver.
No shit.
Get out of here, Frank.
He was.
I love Jackie Gleason, man.
At the house? Are you kidding me right now?
Jackie Gleason never came to our house, but my dad was a drinking buddy of his at a restaurant in New York called Toots Shores. They were like kind of the inner crew there. And Phil Silvers went to my dad and my mom's wedding in like 1951. So,
wow.
So in other words, I grew up in the milieu, if I may use that word, in the milieu of comedy and show business. And so it was something that I was drawn to right away. Plus I was funny in school. I made other kids laugh, and, so I knew that maybe I had a kind of talent for it. It was only later when I got into the business that I had self-doubt.
I was going to say, your inner child, I don't think I've ever heard you sound that confident, sweetie. But yes, so you're lucky that you had this exposure, and leave it to Frank to, as a 10-year-old, get references that George Carlin is talking about. The rest of us would be sitting there fucking playing with our shit.
But George Carlin in the early 60s was not a political comedian. He was not the philosopher comedian that he became. He was just a guy who came on TV and did funny, silly bits like the Hippy Dippy Weatherman and Wonderful Wino. He had these funny characters. And that's what I always say, like when I talk to Kelly Carlin.
Wonderful Wino.
Kelly Carlin.
That's my dad's name.
I think I just thought of my second album. That's fantastic.
Just got my next tattoo.
Kelly Carlin, I tell her, I loved your dad like from day one,
Me too. He's one of the, I don't know that George Carlin, but of course I love him. I love his comedy. I love his mind. I love his hilarity and his intelligence. It's incredible. So you had a lot of exposure to this. I think what we all have in common is that at some point in our lives, we were told we were funny, or we were funny in classrooms, or we got something. Like for me, high school, I was always making people laugh. That was the way that I got by. In junior high,
me too.
I used to do characters when I was young for my family. I used to imitate all my family. That's all I did. Which is funny because I don't do any characters except for my immediate family when I do stand up. But I'm starting to do more characters now. But that's what I did. I did a lot of characters when I was a lot younger, just imitating people in my family.
It's great practice.
It is great. Fose, I don't know if you remember your former self because you were in a fucking heroin coma, but you used to do characters all the time at Bar 6.
Yeah, I still do them. I just don't nod out in between them now. But I still do them. It's a lot of fun. I mean, this can't be taught. You have to have the ability to do it. You know what I mean? Or you have to have someone, because it's one thing, you could be a good writer, you know what I mean? But you got to get up on that stage and you have to be able to really be a good performer as well. And I think that's the definition of a good comic. It's the person that has both and knows it, and can take it from there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's the only thing. it's stand-up like you can go to an acting class or whatever, but like stand-up comedy can only be learned on stage, doing comedy in front of an audience. There's no other way to do it. Classes can be helpful. They can help you organize your thoughts and stuff.
Right.
But the only way to actually learn it is to get on stage in front of an audience and to do it as often as possible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I took a bunch of classes. That's how I got started. I did the American Comedy Institute. You ever hear of that old Ponzi scheme? Bernie Madoff was a producer.
Hey, if your name is Bernie, you're going to be a comedian. There's no getting around.
True. But I did them all, man. I mean, and some of them were good. I mean, I had a bunch of cool coaches like Jim Mandrinos. Was good. Like Jessica Kirsten was my coach and a good friend of mine.
Good hands.
She's as funny as anyone.
Yeah, Jessica. DM Sweetler at the Strip is funny. He's kind of got that old Catskills kind of stuff. But man, you see him do a fucking half hour at the Strip, and he's killing, dude. You know, I mean, he's a pro. You know, but there's been some good. And Linda Smith, man. I don't know if you guys know Linda Smith over at Caroline's. I'm still pretty good friends with her too. And I drop in when I want to like work on certain sets for something that I want to do, new stuff. I'll spend the cash. It's well worth it to go with her. And you know, she's always like, "Hey, you want to get your spot at Caroline's, you know, on a new talent show or whatever, just, you know, for just touching base with her." So, you know, it has its benefits, man, but you definitely have to have the ability to do it.
You have to, and you also
I've seen students and they fucking, and you want this so bad, dude. I feel bad for motherfuckers that can, because I know what it feels like to want it that bad. And you have cats up there that you just want to pull them aside, you know, but I don't want anybody to ever quit. You try it until you have to decide, you know, is this for me or is it not? Because, you know, you never know. I mean, when I started classes, I was in a class with Chris DiStefano. He was just starting out. Me, Chris DiStefano, Charles McBee. All of us took a class together.
Chris DiStefano.
Like I said, it's very helpful. Like I said, you can only learn it on stage. But if you're thinking about doing comedy, like, and this is true with writing too, or anything, like to go to a class, first of all, it gives you a community of other people who have similar interests, and it gives you like a structure, you know, and like, okay, have like write this bit and do it, perform it next week, you know, that kind of stuff that motivates you and organizes you and gives you a context for doing it. But once you've taken the class, though, it's like the only way to be a comedian is to be on stage.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like when I started out, I did not take any classes, and the only way
I've never taken a stand-up class either.
I was going to ask you guys that. Yeah, I was going to ask you.
But to get up on stage is you know, you have a different audience every time. No show is ever alike, and to develop that intrepidity and be able to get up and really fucking dig your heels in, tell your joke, that takes a lot of fucking times on stage.
Yes, it does.
That. The other thing is that you have to fail in order to become stronger. So unless you tank as a comic, you don't really know how to deal with these obstacles.
Yeah.
And you know what? I noticed something in LA when I lived there, is sometimes there'd be these showcase shows, and it would be like a comedy class, and then like kind of the climax of the comedy class was they'd all do a show in a comedy club, and all of the students would get up, and I noticed like a lot of the comics, they would invite all of their friends, and they'd be in the audience, and then they'd get up and they'd kill because it was their friends.
Right.
And then, you know, then they'd never do comedy again.
Right. They never do it again because it's like doing fucking comedy for your aunts and uncles in your living room. That isn't a great gauge. Although I have to say, Frank, the worst audience for me is family and friends. I actually don't like it when my friends and family come out to see me. I'm exactly the same way. And in fact,
too much pressure. It really is too much pressure.
In fact, when I started doing comedy, I never told people at my day jobs that I did comedy. And in fact, this is a true story. I worked at Arby's, not to brag, in Minneapolis when I was living there. And
that makes it better.
I was going out to open mics every night. I was pursuing comedy at night and working at Arby's. And someone at Arby's said, "Man, you're really funny. You should go to one of those comedy clubs and get up." And I still didn't tell them that I was doing comedy. Like I didn't want anyone from that world to see me in this other world. It was just uncomfortable to me. And also, they didn't have bringer shows back then. Bringer shows are a big thing. They're a big thing now. And if they had bringer shows back then, I might not have even done comedy, because the idea that I would invite a lot of people that I knew to come see me as a newcomer doing comedy, unthinkable to me.
Yeah. It's unthinkable. Not only
and
for that,
and at $20 a pop.
Yeah. Not only for that, Frank, that you're going to have people come see you that you know, but also when other comics have their people come, they often don't laugh at the other comics. They only laugh at their own person.
That's right.
Really
those are the graduation shows. Those are the ones after you're done. You do the grad show. There's 70 people. It's all like one family member from like Staten Island. Somebody's got like 60 people from Staten Island, and you're like, a couple other cats there. No, they don't laugh at anybody else. Like Irene said, they just laugh at their family member, because they're so nervous for this person to do well, and it's just really odd. It's a really odd. I've done a few of them, man. So.
The comedian in the grad show from the class, the one that's going to succeed is the one who's going to go to an open mic the next night and then bomb for the next year. Performing every night. That's the comedian who's going to succeed.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That is the comedian who's going to succeed. And until you do bomb, and I'm going to be honest and say that I didn't do that many open mics. I'm going to be honest, because I think that they're also really fucking biased. I think comics don't laugh at anything. The only open mic throughout the years that I highly recommend for anybody, whether you're a pro, seasoned, or starting out, for me, is the Duplex. It's always been such a beautiful open mic to go to, because you have people working on their sets for the Tonight Show, and then you have like these newbies. But you have to do the open mics, Frank, of course.
Yeah.
Like when you're starting out, I just tried to dodge that bullet, and I did. I did as many shows that I could. I produced a lot of shows. That's another way to get up.
That's
how I do it.
It's a great way to get stage time, and plus people who want to be booked in your show, they'll book you into their show.
Exactly.
It's that nice that way.
Yeah. That's how it works for me. I kind of self-manage myself, It really is. It really is. I gave you 15 minutes, so you're like, you're doing 3.
Oh my God. When I was producing a show, Frank and Jose, first of all, Jose, you weren't doing comedy then, and Frank, you were in Minneapolis. I love fucking Minneapolis so much. Anyway, but when I couldn't say no to any comics at all. So I had like 16 comics on a lineup. Little did I know that was like fucking a slow death.
Sure. Very slow death.
Slow death. But I would give everybody stage time, because I couldn't say no to anybody. And I did the room at the Zinc Bar, which is a jazz club. And I would do it downstairs, and I would pack the place, and I booked. And it's interesting because now I'm still getting people are like, oh my God, I remember when I saw like Dimitri Martin doing your show, or all these women, because it was predominantly a girl show. All these girls, I saw her here, I saw her there. It's such an interesting thing to see, in that span of time, how much people have actually, gotten ahead, and I'm still fucking here. Anyway, I'm still positive.
Yeah. Go, girl. I'm listening to you preach, baby. We're listening.
That was for Frank. So it's interesting though, and I'm glad that comedy is back. It's been, I still feel a little unsafe. I'm not going to lie. Doing clubs indoors is still scary to me with the Delta variant. It's surging like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I really hope that people are careful. Have you been doing a lot of, I've been doing some outdoor shows, which have been very awesome. I love the outdoor shows, but, Jose, you actually do a monthly show. You got to get Frank on. He's so funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. Got to do
Frank and I at the same time when we do the booking thing. I would love to. But Frank, you would love his show. He does it at Broadway. He does it with Christy Miller, who Frank knows very well.
Yeah, she's talked to me about him.
Yeah, and
he's a big fan.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she's a big fan. She's a big fan of his.
Yeah, it's called, what is it called again? Don't.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Right. And he does it at Broadway. Now, how are things at the Broadway Comedy Club since this whole Delta?
You know, man, it's Broadway. They're kind of like, fuck it, we're open. You know what I mean? They're abiding by the rules. From what I've seen, from the shows that I've been on, they've been pretty. It depends on the producer too, man. Yeah. The club owner can't be on everybody's ass. They got 2 rooms going at the same time, one big one downstairs, the other one, and that's a lot of fucking people. So, I mean, they're going to have to be very, very diligent about it because they're going to start checking on this shit. And comedy clubs are going to be the first fucking places they're going to hit. Trust me. Restaurants are a little too, I think bars and comedy clubs are going to be the first places that they go for the vaccine check. But it's, from what I've heard, nobody's really complaining, though. People are showing their shit. They get it. They're like, fuck it. I know that I'm going to get turned away. You're obviously showing up to be an asshole. If you're going to be like, what do you want to see my vaccine for? Well, then, dude, do you have the fucking CNN? Motherfucker, you know what I mean? You can't go anywhere in New York City indoors without it. So why are you showing up here without it and giving me shit? You know what I mean? It's like, so, from people I've heard from bars, bartender friends of mine, and people at the club, most people are pretty like, hey, man, here's my picture. People have their ID. They carry the card with them. They're pretty prepared. They're not having too many problems. So I thought it was going to be crazy. I thought people were going to be up in arms and shit.
Yeah, but that's here in Manhattan, though. But you should see the uproar here on Staten Island.
Oh, I bet.
Really? Are people resistant there?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to believe, right?
That's Republican Nation out there, baby.
You know
That's
what?
Trump country.
I'm resistant to the people here, and they're resistant to their double vaccination cards.
You know what I saw? A great tweet today. Somebody said, all of these ICUs are filled up with COVID patients. There's not one ICU bed filled up with someone who's in there because the vaccine made them sick.
Right.
Right.
That's a great tweet.
Yeah. How about this one? You have no problem smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. You're worried about getting this vaccine? Give me a fucking break, dude. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. They're not taking away your rifles, dude. They're not coming into your house and taking your cable from you. Yeah. You know what I mean? That'd be a real bitch. They're trying to help. It's crazy. People just pick a rally cry to get behind, and it's crazy. I mean, it's just common sense,
And we were also talking about this, though, Jose. Last show with Frank, we were talking about Joe Rogan and his bullshit and the shit that he's spreading, saying that the vaccination itself is like starting all these mutations that are coming out.
Yeah.
Also, he's got a giant audience and base.
I live with an anti-vaxxer as we speak. He's a 70-year-old. He performs in one of the Philharmonics here. He's a musician. I'm not going to mention his name, but he is a great guy, beautiful guy.
I love that your roommate is 70 years old, Jose.
70 years old. Well, our apartment's so big. We have a separate apartment in the back, and we keep him locked up in that motherfucker. He pays half the rent though. Boom, good to be white. He's big time. He goes to rallies. He was anti-vax. It was so funny. He came in the other day. He looks just like fucking Willie Nelson, okay? But doesn't smoke pot. That's how fucked up this is.
And he's an anti-vaxxer, which is so fucking confusing.
He looks like Gandalf in like suspenders. And he comes in and he has his anti-vax button. And he says to me, he's like, you know what? I got to tell you. And I live on the Upper West Side in like this fucking co-op, snooty apartment building. And the people here, all these liberal academics. And man, he goes, boy, I sure get a lot of dirty looks with this pin on. I'm like, yo, my man, what do you like? You like the white Stevie Wonder? Come on, dude. You have a fucking huge fucking vax. It has a needle with it crossed out. And then he wears like a trench coat, he wears like a trench coat.
So he's wearing a trench coat, which is also suspect. So he's like,
it's very suspect. And he looks like Gandalf, and I'm not even making that. But he's a very sweet guy. But he listens to all these podcasts all night long, and I could hear him coming from his room in the back. Right. And he takes it very seriously. And he's not an unintelligent person. He's an intelligent guy. But he really is. This is like religion to him. Like their cause is really wild, and he's really passionate about it. It's strange. You should hear the shit he tells me. It's crazy.
Fucking moronic is what it is, sweetie. And if he looks like Willie Nelson, so he's more like Duck Dynasty. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. Yeah. He's got the little like struggling man bun at the end,
Like, they had a gigantic Oh, well, a big anti-vax rally right here in my neighborhood the other day.
They had what?
Where's this, in Brooklyn?
No, I live on the Upper East Side, and I live across from Gracie Mansion. So there's always a lot of protests in this neighborhood. But Jordan Kupner on the Daily Show did a whole segment about it and interviewing the crazy anti-vaxxers. But, you know, you think about it, those crazy people that they're all down south or they're in Texas or Florida. They're like a fucking block from my house, you know?
Yeah.
Wow, Frank. Oh my God.
It's true. It's
now
true,
you know
though.
what I feel like, Frank, on Staten Island.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Now you know what it feels like, you know? When I'm at CVS and I'm getting a purchase and I have to hear the cashier woman, I have to overhear her talking about how she's
gonna get her meth that night.
Well, they're not vaccinated because they legitimately believe that the vaccination will kill you. And to Frank's point, and whoever tweeted that out, which is a genius tweet and so true, how many of the hospital beds are filled with people that are dying because of the vaccination, you know?
Yeah, and they're all, you know,
crazy.
Even like the governor of Texas got fucking COVID, and he still won't put in any vaccine.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
I mean, it's literally. I mean, a million people have said this already, but it's true. They are a death cult.
Yeah, they really are.
They really are.
They really are. And you know what? I think there's a little tad of this, of a little bit of race involved too, because a lot of the people that are being affected, you know, and a lot of and Black and Hispanic people are. I mean, for the most part, Latinos. They'll just, you know, they'll just go with the flow and do it, you know. But you get the ones that, at least on the east side, on like the northeast, but you get down south with these motherfuckers from Texas and Florida. They're all like Republican. They're all Jesus thumpers. They're not like, you know, sitting out in Central Park, you know, playing the congas and shit at 2:00 in the morning like my father used to do.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's so cool. That was so cool.
Actually, I was a little embarrassed.
No, it's not embarrassing. Embarrassing was my father. Okay, he was like a physical wrestler.
If my father had played congas, that would have been embarrassing. Not your father, but
Frank's father was like a staggeringly hot dude that looked like was a journalist. Yanni had cigarette burns all over his tie. Looked like he just narrowly escaped a hurricane. That's my father.
He hangs out with what are the guys?
My dad was on the spectrum. He was on the autistic spectrum. My dad on the
really?
Yeah, he was high functioning autism. Yeah, autistic.
Oh wow.
So he was completely socially unaware, you know, just like the nerd you've ever seen in your life. And of course, nerd being the giant compliment, of course, because Yanni did it better than anybody could. But yeah, he was on the spectrum. No, he wasn't playing the bongos like the Yurku dad or fucking hanging out with Jackie Gleason like fucking Frank's dad.
I love that, man. I'm a big Jackie Gleason fan. I watch The Honeymooners religiously every weekend. One of my favorite shows. I watch it religiously.
What did you say about Jackie Gleason, Frank? I'm curious because there's mixed things about Jackie.
I know.
Did you meet him?
I never got to meet him. I did when we were in Miami Beach. I went to a live taping of the Jackie Gleason show.
Oh my God.
So that was pretty exciting.
Wow.
The thing about that is, I don't know if you remember, this was his hour-long variety show in the late 60s. And they used to do like hour-long honeymooners musicals.
Oh,
wow. I would have loved that.
Like a whole hour-long honeymooner story, but it would have songs that were specifically written for the show. And it was like they did like a Broadway musical every week. And I saw it done live. And this is what was incredible is there were no cue cards, no teleprompters, and they did it straight through without any breaks, without stopping to retape anything. They did because they were all professionals from the theater and from like it was. They were just from that era where people knew how to do that. And that was the amazing thing. The thing was to see them just do this whole show, an hour long, and straight through as if it wasn't live, it was taped, but they did it as if it was live. And it was amazing.
That's amazing. Well, Frank, I heard that, and I read and I heard from I forget where I heard this. We were discussing the honeymooners, and I guess a lot of the honeymooners was done whimsically. Everything was done there was a lot of improv during those during the honeymooners. They weren't scripted. They were all unscripted for the most part.
I think there was some improv. I read one story where somebody in the 50s they did do it live on television. Those sitcom versions of the honeymooners from the 50s that we all remember, those were done live at the time.
They were in the theater,
in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And I heard that I was just a description that I read. A person said Art Carney as Ed Norton was in the kitchen on the set, on the honeymooners set, and someone missed their cue and didn't come in. And he was just sitting there. The actor that was supposed to be there wasn't there. And the person said he went and he just started peeling a banana. And the guy writing it said it was like the funniest 5 minutes he'd ever seen. And it was just Art Carney peeling a banana.
Yeah, he was a genius, man.
You know what genius is?
He's the original Kramer.
But it's being in the moment. These guys were unflappable. You know what I mean? We're in the moment because they were such professionals. That's what we were talking about before with stand-up.
And also, Jackie Gleason had a photographic memory.
Yeah.
So he could memorize a script.
Yep.
Once, and he literally just came in the day of the show but he didn't rehearse all week. He just came in that day and did it.
And apparently he would get upset with the actors because they couldn't catch up with him. Yeah. He was a big taskmaster. He was the producer of that show. He was he was the guy.
He owned it.
Yeah.
And at one point he decided, you know what, I want to live in Florida. I want to play golf every day. So they moved the entire show to Florida. I mean, that's the kind of
everybody suffers.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Good to be the boss.
but it's good to be the boss. But also, I forgot about his photographic memory. That's right.
Yeah.
He had a photographic memory.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. He knew the script, and it's so unbelievable that he was such a Herculean talent that he could just walk in off a fucking bender. Because believe me, he was either drunk by a bender.
He liked to drink with his friends, like my dad all week. And then he'd come in.
He smoked like 4 packs of cigarettes a day too.
And then but you know what? He was a great actor, and his performance.
Thespian.
His performance as Ralph Cramden is both very broad, like old style comedy, but it's also very real and dramatic.
Yeah,
and
it
is.
An
incredible thing that they achieved on that show.
Yeah.
It's really been done. And you know, if you watch him in movies like The Hustler, he was a great actor, great dramatic actor. Requiem for a Heavyweight.
Yeah.
Completely serious roles. And he was just an amazing talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was an amazing talent. And I think that's what I know that I read that when they were on set, that they would just sort of deviate from the script and just start, like you said, just kind of like going in a different, just improvising, you know.
They were all super talented, though. Everybody in that cast was super talented.
Exactly.
Alice was my favorite, dude. I mean,
Alice
I loved her.
She was so beautiful and so demure, and he was this big loudmouth, but she wore the pants in that house. You know what I mean? Right. In a time where that was like not the you know, it wasn't really put forward that much. You know what I mean? It was more like, you know, I'm the king of the castle, and she really showed. I think he was a really good role model for young women. You know, she worked her ass off. She didn't take any shit. You know, it was pretty cool.
Right. She always had, you know, she always had him just making a fool out of himself, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I think all of his bluster of I'm the king of the castle. And I mean, he was so sexist, and he would threaten her with domestic abuse.
The moon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's why those shows, you can still watch them now, because she always like punctured. He was never the king of the castle, you know?
Yeah.
That was just all bravado on his part. She was really the one who was in charge. And it's why those shows, like some other stuff, you know, that hasn't aged that well, like those episodes have aged really well.
Right.
Yeah, they have.
It's why most American relationships work. Trust me. The woman the guy always thinks he's in control in a lot of the relationships that I know. but the women are always in control. But men have such hubris, they have to feel like they're in fucking control. Right. So it was like that whole dynamic, you know?
Yeah.
He had to feel like he was in control, but we as the audience could clearly see that he was never in control. Right, you know what I mean? She always had.
He was a great hero for the everyday man, though. You know what I mean? He drove that bus. He always had aspirations and dreams, and they're always working on a scam. And it was just so great to work hard all week, and then he went to sneak out one day a week and go down to the lodge or go bowling. You know, and it was just every person could relate to that. You know, and that's why I had no friends who were African American, and anybody could watch that show, even if it's predominantly just a white cast. And they feel like they know those people. They feel like that's like their uncle. You know what I mean? That's how good that's how good they were.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I could still watch it. I could binge watch those episodes.
Saturday nights, man. Channel 11, man. It comes on every time. I watch it every weekend.
On MeTV too.
Yeah.
MeTV. It's never going to. Who the hell is collecting the residuals from that now? What happened?
There's only one still alive. It's Trixie. Trixie's still alive. She's 96, 97.
Joyce Randolph.
Joyce Randolph. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody else died. Alice, Joyce Randolph. Wait, who's Trixie? That's
Joyce Randolph. The other one is Jane Meadows or Audrey.
Jane Meadows. Audrey Meadows. Yeah.
Meadows.
That's Alice. That's Alice.
Yeah.
Randolph is the only one that's still alive. Trust me, I'm a member of the Honeymooners fan club on Facebook.
What are you saying? Trixie's collecting? She's getting all the royalties and that?
I don't think actors don't get royalties from who did shows in those days. Gleason did because he owned it.
He owned it, yeah.
But there are a lot of successful shows. Like the Gilligan's Island cast never got residuals.
No way.
I remember hearing that.
Dude.
They made the rules that you had to get residuals like in the early to mid 60s, but like anything in the 50s, like unless you had a special deal, like actors didn't get residuals back then.
Wow, that is
Wow, that blows my mind, dude. That's crazy. I'm thinking they were getting residuals since at least that era.
Well, we live in the internet age. They figured out technological ways for people to not get residuals and stuff.
Yeah. Yes, they have. It's called doing voiceover. Whoever call my agent when I get that.
Sucks though. Imagine something that's.
You know what I heard, guys?
From Gilligan's Island. I remember hearing that, Frank, and reading about that with Gilligan's Island.
I heard that though. I heard that one of the guys from the Beverly Hillbillies made a lot of money from residuals, though, didn't he? And he owns like a casino now or something. Or maybe I've got that story wrong.
Because I don't. That's possible, but the only one that I think got residuals from that was Buddy Ebsen, but I could be wrong.
It's probably him.
Yeah, but he was he's long gone now.
Yeah. Buddy Ebsen, wow, shit.
He was old when I was a little kid, so.
Yeah.
R.I.P., sweetie. R.I.P. Yeah. So, Jose, what are you, I want to make sure that we get to showcase everything that you're doing before we sign off. I want to know, you said you were working on an album, is that right?
Yeah, I'm putting together, I need more time, it'll be my first one. So I'm going through a bunch of old stuff. I'm rehashing things, and I'm also sitting back and watching how the world is unfolding, to kind of gauge where I want to go with my the theme of what I want to like. I want to make my initial name for the album was going to be Race and Beans instead of Rice and Beans, but don't know yet. It's going to talk a lot about race, a lot of stuff that's going on now, and I don't know, I'm mixing it up. It's been a year since we haven't done stand-up, so it's kind of weird getting back out there, and it seems like a totally different world. So I'm just getting up and just knocking the back and figuring out what I'm going to use for the special, and timing. You guys don't know how it is, so.
Well, I think
hopefully by the new year, it'll be done.
I think Jose, the fact that you're using. I think that you have to encapsulate what your set is about. You know what I mean? So race, you definitely want to highlight that. But when I saw you at Broadway, I actually never saw your stand-up before. You realize that? Never saw it. That was the first time, and I thought you were hilarious.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah. I love it, man. You know, it's cool, and there's no better feeling. And it's crazy because, you know, I've like, my life has changed a lot. So I've like sobered up, and so it's so different now. You know, it's so much more important. And I really, instead of like always fearing getting up on stage and having it like, oh, it's dreading, I got to do this show, and I got to go do this show. Now it's the feeling that I'm supposed to have, where I'm racing to get there, and I'm having fun. I'm not afraid. You know what I mean? In a sense where I dread it. You know, I used to dread getting up, and then I'd love it once I was on, but I wanted to get rid of the dread, and now it's gone. So I think that's going to be a big plus. You know,
a pandemic to get rid of the dread. Good for you, Jose.
Yeah.
In my case, it's the audience that feels the dread. So.
My case too, bro. Don't sleep on that. Come to one of my shows. You'll see.
I still sometimes feel the dread, though. It's terrible. Now, I don't know what that is. And again, it's not the actual on stage that I feel the dread.
Yeah.
It's travel,
it's everything that goes along with it.
Getting there that I feel the dread about.
Yeah, me too. That's really it for me. You know, and then it's the anxiety of like, but you know what's crazy? Once the show starts and that first comic hits, something happens where I kind of it's like I turn on, you know, my mind, even though I'm not going on, you know, next, I could be going on fifth or whatever. It's game on once that MC hits, and you feel the crowd, you feel how they're doing, you get a feel for them, and get a feel for the room and all that stuff. And I instantly just become kind of very calm as I get up there.
I like to do that too. Like when I go, it doesn't matter how many, I've been doing this for fucking over 20 years. It does not matter when I go to a comedy show, you know, and I didn't have any breaks, okay? Literally, I did this consistently. You know, I never took any time off. When I get up on stage, what I like to do is I always like to gauge the crowd. Still to this day, I have to sit in the back. I have to look at the audience, you know. It's not something, I don't know if a lot of comics do that, but I always like to see what's going on with the audience, you know?
Yeah, I hate those clubs where you're like literally in the back. You know, I've done the punchline. I don't care where it is that I've done. You know, I'll chill in the green room for a little while, chop it up with the guys. But once the show starts, I go out there. The first MC, especially in the beginning, and that first act, and I always sit there and watch it. And then, of course, you know, you want to watch your friends at times too. Yeah. But I'm very rarely like hanging out in the green room, man. I want to be in there. I want to hear the successes, dude. I want to see how the comics are doing.
I want to see the failures mostly.
Yeah, of course. Especially the motherfucker coming on before me. But yeah, like I like being out on the floor. I'm not one of those guys. And I always used to find it weird. You know, you start getting better at your career, and then you start performing with people that you really like, admire and like, and they'll just kind of sit in the green room and be like, fuck it, I'm not going to watch anybody. You know what I mean? And I used to, when I was starting out, I was kind of like, oh, I wish you would watch my set. And, you know, and then you chop it up and talk about all kinds of, you know, shit in the green room. And then, you know, I'm like, I'm coming on next. You know, I'm like, all right, I'll see you after.
But it almost feels like if
break a leg, motherfucker.
It almost feels like now when, like, you know, I didn't get up for a year during COVID. And when I started getting up, it almost felt like even if something needed to work on it or was a work in progress, I had a plan. Like my plan was to work out and flesh out this fucking bit. So whether it was getting the laughs that I hoped for or it wasn't, it was still, I was working on this bit. I was working on and we talked to Carmen Lynch when she was on the show, or I don't know if it was this show, but I remember talking to Carmen and she was saying that the jokes still weren't landing post-COVID with audience, COVID, because COVID is still with us, but the reopenings, like it's still like the audiences were still sort of resistant.
Freaked out. They're freaked out, They're freaked out.
They're freaked out, or they're not. It's almost like this, you know, laughter is contagious. So some, you know what I mean? So is COVID, maybe that's what it was. They're afraid. They're in a panicked state. Who the hell knows? But it feels like audiences, you know, it's almost like they had to get back into the swing of things.
Right.
They do.
The audience for my recent shows are being responsible and socially distancing and going outside while I'm on stage.
They socially left the fucking building is what they did.
You know what? I think I'm going to go have that Newport now. Who's up next? Cigarette time.
And none of it is true, as you will see for your fucking self when Mr. Conniff graces your stage with his presence.
Actually, I'm going to tell you guys that we're about to start booking our next show, and I told you wanted to get back up, so I want to try to get Frank on as well. We've already talked about it, me and Chrissy. So I was going to bring it up today, but you guys beat me to it.
All right.
That's amazing. We're both up for it. What was I going to say? And wait till you see him. He's hilarious. As is Jose. Jose, like I said, you know, it's a weird moment if you've never seen somebody stand up and you're like, oh my God, what if he fucking sucks? And I think it's so funny. I'm an overly complimentary person, but I actually mean it. If I don't mean it, I can't compliment.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
I'll leave it like this. That was good.
Thank you.
That's when you know I hated it. I'll never hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah. Comedy. I want the honest to God truth from comedians, you know, especially comedians that I know I respect.
You're great.
Don't bullshit me. You know what I mean? If dude, your set wasn't good, I want that more than, hey, you did a great job. You know what I mean? Because if a comic's saying that to me, I know I need to work on something, you know, especially a comic that you like and you respect, you know what I mean? So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean,
and you fucking rocked too. That was my first time seeing you live. I've seen you on film before, but that was the first time seeing you live, and that was very impressive.
That was really fun. What a warm room. You're going to love it. It's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
So we're coming to the end of the hour. This was so much fun. It actually really flew by. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
So Jose, sweet boy, let us know where you're going to be and what you're doing and plug all your socials.
Sure. So Dumb J Vega comic on Instagram. That's all I use because I'm in my 48. And also I'll be at a Broadway Comedy Club on the 29th for the 25th anniversary of Latino Laughter. 25 years of Latino Laughter with George Diaz at Broadway Comedy Club, 7 p.m. It's the only show where the audience kills. And then on September 10th, my brother's getting married. And then on September 10th, I'm back at Broadway Comedy Club doing our good friend Janice Massetti's show.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna be around banging some shows out. So that's about it for now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a lot. You got a lot going on. That's awesome. Frankie boy, what's going on in the world of the Mads?
Well, the Mads will be doing our next show September 14th. We'll be online. Go to Eventbrite. You can get tickets, $10, and we're going to be riffing the classic movie The Brain Eaters. So that's going to be
awesome. Okay, Frank, I'm always trying to think of movies that you should watch, that you should riff on. I saw one. I have no idea why I saw this, but it's called Satan's Claw. It's like an old movie from the 70s about a witch.
If we can afford it, we'll do that one for sure.
I think it would be a real good one for you guys.
And also, by the way, I'm going to be at Littlefields in Brooklyn on September 1st with a great lineup. Liz Mealy,
awesome.
Emily Flake, and Dave Hill. Really good show.
That's an amazing lineup. You guys, that's incredible. And I'll be posting anything that I'm doing on Instagram at Irene Bremis on Twitter, and that's it. All right, guys. Awesome show. Love you.
Thank
guys.
you.
We'll see everybody
Love you too.
Tuning in.
Bye.
We will see you next Tuesday.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
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 Thanks for tuning in to the Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene on Strong Island Entertainment. Check us out next week when Frank and Irene sit down with, you know what? I don't know what these two are going to do next, but we'll see you next week.